Welcome to the regular session of the Bountiful City Council. My name is Chris Simonson. I'm a member of the Bountiful City Council and will be the Mayor Pro Tem tonight. Our Mayor Randy Lewis is out of town. We would like to start by having a prayer by Father Andrew of the St. Olaf's Catholic Church. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Chief Ed Brewster. Father Andrew.
Oh, gracious God, you are the source of all life, and we praise you. You are the source of our rich diversity, and we delight in you. Unite us to yourself in the bond of love, and keep us faithful to all that is true. With grateful hearts, we acknowledge the dedication of all those women and men upon whose efforts we continue to build. At this time of unrest, we especially pray for the safety of our troops, our citizens, and people whose lives are in danger in Afghanistan. May your guiding presence give our national leaders and the leaders of our local governments courage to face the challenges that lie ahead. Grant us inquiring minds and listening hearts that we may deepen our understanding of the concerns of your people. Help us to discover new opportunities for leadership and service as we seek to live and promote your values of love, justice, and peace. Hear our prayer that in walking the way of your truth, we may leave the imprint of your goodness throughout the world. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Andrew. Did I say that wrong?
The audience, please arise. And repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. This portion of the council time is for comments from the public. Please come forward to the mic. You have 2 minutes. We have a clock running here, and this portion of the council will last 10 minutes. Please come forward, state your name and your address. Who would like to be first?
My name is Lee Caldwell, and I live in the Villanova condominiums at 1950 South, 200 West in Bountiful. Accompanying me are 2 or 3 other members of our management committee or board of directors. And we're here tonight for the purpose of presenting a petition to the council requesting the installation of a blind corner mirror opposite the driveway that is our exit to 200 West. Now, the reason for that is this. And if you can see this in part, this is an outmoded or outdated a bit, but a Google map of the location we're talking about. This is our swimming pool. This is our exit roadway to 200 West, which is this roadway. Now, this one is the Huntington Apartments on this side, or townhouses. This one is inaccurate. This is where the Bristol Village has been constructed, consisting of 19 units, and there's a roadway exit there. So what that means is that there are approximately 87 housing units that utilize those 3 driveways within a space of about 300 feet. And that would also represent probably some 150 different vehicles that are exiting there. What we have found is that there's an extreme safety hazard. And that hazard is because of the crowded conditions in those spaces, there's almost constant parking on the west side of 200 West, meaning that as we exit, there's almost no way we can see oncoming traffic without pulling out into the middle of the roadway. 200 West in that area has not been graced with a stripe down the road. So because of vehicles parked on that side, that means lots of vehicles just move over towards the middle of the road. They come at a pretty fast pace from 1800 south, and that too means that we are looking at an accident waiting to happen. We have had several near misses there, and so we're asking for the installation of a blind corner type mirror to be mounted on the east side of 200 West that would allow us a view of traffic coming from north and or south so that we could hopefully avoid a potential tragedy.
Thank you. Would you leave that information with our city manager and maybe also that picture with,
Yes.
with Mr. Hill, please?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miranda Lotz. I live at 43 South, 750 East in Bountiful. And I just wanted to say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is today. And while it's always wonderful to gather more information to try and make educated decisions, when you've been presented with 4 wonderful options and you have the option to plant the tree, you should. And I am not in favor of putting another 6 months into the debate about whether we should get Utopia. The city council building has Utopia. You are withholding a needed utility of the city for the citizens of Bountiful that you are enjoying in this very building. So it's time to plant the tree. And I hope you will choose one of these wonderful options. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Melanie Mortensen. I live at 68 Windsor Court. I have been in contact with you about painting bicycle lanes on Bountiful Boulevard. And I have a petition signed by almost 400 other supporters of this action, all of whom are invested in greater safety for both cyclists and motorists on the boulevard. I'm asking you tonight to prioritize this action. Let's make a goal to get the lines painted by the end of September. This is an easy fix. Lanes are already painted in the north end of North Salt Lake, and to continue those on through Bountiful, I think would be a quick decision, be a fast and easy solution to create designated spaces for both the cyclists and the motorists. Too many of both have had near misses with each other, and this would create opportunities to create a safer environment for everyone who uses it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you leave that petition with our city manager, please?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dallas Smith. I live on 59 West, 2200 South. In a great example of why the city should not have ownership of this network, it took 30 minutes for the stream of the work session to go online. I streamed it myself to our Facebook group, Bountiful for Fiber, on your fine Utopia network, I might add, which worked stunningly, and I would say that if it's good enough for you, it's good enough for the city. Councilman Higgins, the reason why members of the Facebook group are advocates for Utopia is because we are educated, and it is the best option. When there's a Bountiful for City-owned Fiber Facebook group or a Bountiful for Google Fiber Facebook group, I may consider joining that, but until then, I will stick with Utopia. And I would add that where competition exists between Google and CenturyLink Fiber in Salt Lake, the prices are less than what you showed in your work session presentation. Competition is what will drive the price down for the residents. The cost savings being passed on to the citizens is a fantasy. If cost savings were to be passed on to the citizens, then our power bills should be getting lower. Am I mistaken in my understanding of revenue from the power department being diverted to other departments? I don't think so. Since, I don't know when you put your notes together for the work session, but Clinton, West Point, and Syracuse are all contracted with Utopia also. Look at the take rates. It is such an easy statistic to look at. We can compare ourselves so easily with Centerville and some of these other communities where they blow it out of the water. It is just such a no-brainer to anybody looking at those take rates. And that's all I have to say. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
My name's Brandon Norland. I live at 249 South, 200 East. I am a cloud infrastructure consultant for Dell Technologies. I work in the federal government DoD space. I know a little bit about IT, so figured I'd come up and give you a few points. First of all, straight off of Magellan Advisors website, it says that they provide project and construction management for rapid deployment, network integration, beta testing and launch to get you ready for service, and staffing and management to optimize your operations. So I think it's pretty clear from that that they are far from not having any skin in the game to get you to use them as a consultant in the hopes that they could possibly get more business from you down the road. Also, the point was made that you don't want to rush a decision and that you all don't know what you don't know. I think that that's a very good point of view to approach this from. It's very complex and you should absolutely make the right decision. With that being said, another 8 to 12 weeks to find some other consulting options is not that much time. So if that's what the council feels that you should do, I would encourage you to do so. I also want to bring up that with the rising taxes and the other bonds that have been voted through, I think that if an option came up to where the city decided to do it themselves and a bond had to be passed to do it, it would probably fail because there's a lot of people that just can't afford and won't want to bear the additional cost. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm BJ Lieber. I live on 1882 South 350 East in Bountiful. And when listening to the workshop, I heard a lot of communication about delays or things like that. My primary concern with delaying the process is that really is money out of the pockets of the citizens of Bountiful. Because I was looking at internet providers in our area, and we only have really one that gives any sort of viable speed, and that's Xfinity. And the unfortunate reality is with only one viable internet service provider, they can charge us any amount, and we have to pay it. And so not only getting lower service quality, but overpriced service quality is too common. So I think delaying it will cost us more money long-term as citizens than taking more time to make a decision or even try to implement something that is city-run, because we're spending the money currently. And there's no guarantee that we'll save that money long-term, whereas there's a guarantee that the prices will decrease if we allow competition here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Our 10 minutes are up for our public comment time. Thank you all for your comments. Notes have been made on each of your comments, and we appreciate that. We'll go forward with our minutes. Consider approval of minutes of previous meetings held on July 27th, August 9th, and August 11th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes of July 27th, August 9th, and August 11th.
Any
Second?
comments?
Yeah, one comment if I could. On page 34 of the minutes, line 6, there's the number 15% there that should be corrected to 11.25%. And the rest of it with the additional 3.75% equals the 15% that is indicated in the first part of that sentence. I believe that's the correct number that was given. Councilman Harris, is that correct?
Tell me what page?
Page 34, line 6.
Yeah.
So I don't know who will make note of that, but that 15 should go to 11.25 to cover the cost of new employees and 3.75% to cover the cost of inflation. That was the only correction I found.
I'm
With that
happy-
correction,
I'm happy to withdraw my motion so that you can place a motion to amend.
I'm sorry.
So I'm happy to withdraw my motion so that you can place a motion to amend.
I'd rather you just stick with your motion. Okay, Kate,
do we have a second?
I'll be able then to somehow word this, I hope. I'd like to replace Kate's motion with a motion to approve the minutes with the correction made and approved by Councilwoman Harris.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Let's go into our council reports. Let's start with Richard.
Oh, after I bungled that Robert's Rules procedure there, maybe you better avoid me. Drought. Drought is an issue, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Our water department, of course, has experienced a recent poor test in radium. Residents should have gotten the mailer about it and have gotten more information. Appreciate staff being on top of this and taking care of it. Want to assure people that with all due haste, that problem will be fixed. Additionally, our power department is looking into the future, as they always do, and our power director, Mr. Alan Johnson, this morning shared with the Power Commission that the Colorado River Storage Project, where we get approximately 40% of our power, is that right, Alan? They're looking at some fairly significant changes potentially coming up during the winter. And Alan's going to be on top of that, as he always is. And if there's anything that becomes more concrete, I'm sure he'll have something to share with the council. But there are things afoot in the power industry because of the low water levels in hydro plants that could impact us. But he's monitoring those, and his folks are, and they'll take good care of us. And that's all I have.
Millie? Millie, please.
I have nothing to report this evening.
Kendallin?
Thanks. I want to thank the people that came to the work session, and I know that Councilman Higginson, I don't mean to put any words in his mouth, but I know that he truly does believe that the Facebook group cares, and that's why they're here, and that's a good thing. Am I right?
Absolutely. Not only that, I may vote to go with Utopia.
Yeah,
I have not made a decision.
right.
So,
So
yeah.
I just wanted to reiterate that we're glad you're here. We're glad you're involved. It's a really important process for the community to be involved in. And when it comes to representing the residents of Bountiful, it's tricky because I'm supposed to represent the residents of Bountiful, and many of the residents are saying, this is what we want. And then on the other side of our job, we have to look at the interests of the city. And so we're trying to weigh those, and we're trying to be wise. And so it is frustrating. I'm frustrated myself when we try to use the internet at my house, and it's tough between 4 different tablets or devices. So anyway, I just want to reassure you that we appreciate you being involved, and that we are trying to come up with a solution that works, that helps the community. Also, just a quick announcement that September 22nd is the Bountiful Business Symposium. So all Bountiful businesses are invited here that morning at 7:45, Wednesday, September 22nd. Thanks.
Thanks, Kendallin. This coming Friday will be the last concert in the park, 4th North Park. It's going to be a 50s, 60s band, and these concerts have been wonderful. And I hope all of us will take an opportunity to come out, support the local artists, sit and enjoy yourself under a nice tree, and enjoy the band from the 50s and 60s. One last item, I'm going to paint a different hat. I want to thank the Bountiful citizens, and especially our police, fire, street, parks, for a wonderful Coats for Kids car show this last weekend. We had a record crowd there, and it's been unbelievable the number of volunteers that came and participated in the 23rd annual Coats for Kids. Thank you. This means this year we will have enough funds to clothe every needy child in the South Davis area in winter clothing. Thanks to you coming and participating. Thank you. Back to being Mayor Pro Tem. Let's go on. Consider the approval.
I know I'm hanging out here on the end by myself since you moved, Mayor Pro Tem, but
Kate,
if you wouldn't mind.
Kate, I apologize. We'll go on without Kate. Oh, no, let's go on, Kate.
Two things I wanted to mention. For those of you that were here for the work session, you noticed that Councilwoman Segura Barr and I came in right at the start, and that is because we were participating in the Traffic Safety Committee meeting that took place at 5 o'clock. I want to mention this, and it'll be discussed later on in the agenda item, because of one of our residents that came to comment about an issue in their neighborhood with visibility on a street. The Traffic Safety Committee is the place where we consider those types of things. It doesn't meet on a regular schedule. It meets based on when there are requests from residents to review different things. It involves our police department, our streets department, our engineering department, and members of the council. And because it is a committee that only kind of meets on demand, it doesn't get as much notice as maybe the Power Commission or the Planning Commission. So wanted to take that opportunity to let folks know that that committee exists. It exists for exactly the types of things that you raised today. We'll be acting on some items later on in the agenda that had previously been brought for that committee's consideration. And then we also have a wonderful Bountiful Trails Advisory Committee. They met recently and had seen the work of our resident that is interested in bike lanes on Bountiful Boulevard. And that committee is looking into that issue and is very much aware. So I want to let you know that that has already landed on our radar as well. And with that, I will send it back to you, Mayor Pro Tem, from the far end over here.
Kate, I apologize. You're so far away, I forgot you were here. Let's go on. Consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 paid July 19th, 26th, August 2nd, and 9th, 2021, and the preliminary June 2021 financial report. Do we have a motion?
I motion that we approve the expenditures greater than $1,000, which were paid on July 19th, 26th, and August 2nd and 9th, as well as our preliminary June 2021 financial report.
Discussion?
Second?
Second. Kendallin? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consider approval of the primary election results as prepared by the Davis County Clerk, Auditor's Office, Canvas. Gary Hill.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At the end of each election, primary or regular election, the City Council is required by state law to meet as a board of canvassers, or I guess a better way to say this is to canvass the election results. And the election is administered by Davis County. They have provided us with the results of the primary election, which only included mayoral candidates this time, and thought I would share a few of the statistics that are interesting. There were 26,872 registered voters, 10,595 ballots cast for a 39.43% voter turnout. There were 5,699 votes cast for Kendallin Harris, 2,792 for Randy Lewis, and 2,086 for Bob Lindsay, for a total votes cast, again, of 10,577. Of interest to the council, potentially, and to the public, is that there were 220 ballots that were submitted that were not timely, 28 where the signatures did not match, 37 where there was no signature, and a few other, and one deceased person who voted, apparently. Those were included in the votes, the tallies that were not counted. So at this time, We would look for a motion for you to approve the canvass results of the recent primary election. And happy to answer any questions otherwise.
Do we have a motion?
Happy to move that we approve the canvas as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Let's go on. Consider approval of additional costs associated.
Just a clarification on that, was that an aye opposed or an aye in favor?
Nay. Nay means I'm opposed. Aye means I'm here.
Right, but
Yes.
you said aye after, so I just want to be clear, so there wasn't any confusion.
Very clear.
Okay.
Aye. Let's go on. Sorry.
Chris, you're doing awesome.
No, I'm not. My allergies are killing me. I'm sorry. My eyes are watering and my nose is stuffy and I feel rotten. But other than that, I'm wonderful.
Sounds
Thank
like
you.
COVID.
Let's go on. Let's
so
consider
grateful.
approval of the additional costs associated with the 2021 overlay projects and approve payment to Black Forest Paving. Mr. Cheney.
Thank you, Mayor. You may remember back in March of this year, the council approved a contract with Black Forest Paving for 4 projects that spanned 2 separate budget years. As we proceeded to go through those projects, we found that sometimes the assumptions that you make as an engineer coming up with quantities don't always line up with the reality that you encounter in the field. Particularly in the expenditures in the Cave Hollow, Wood Hollow area, as we overlaid that road, as we ground down through the existing asphalt to prepare a surface for a new overlay, we encountered places where old overlays were very thin and they began to peel off as we milled, and that left a very slick surface that an overlay wouldn't adhere very well to. So we had to go back and do some additional milling. We found places that were soft and needed to be repaired, so we didn't have a premature pavement failure in those areas. I'll admit my staff is very good. I don't think any of them have the name of Clark Kent. They don't see underground very well. And we made some basic assumptions on length and width and thicknesses that we intended to put back on the street. This has resulted in some significant costs. These exceed the thresholds that are established by policy, exceeded 10% and $20,000 of the project cost. Now, that being said, these were judgment calls we made in the field, knowing that more asphalt thickness would provide a better structure for our roads. It would probably prolong maintenance in those areas, particularly on the upper areas of Lakeview Drive and the Cave Hollow area. Those roads are subject to some serious abuse with the amount of plow traffic, the winter conditions, and the native soils. We deal with a lot of groundwater in that area. We have a pretty extensive drainage system along the edges of that road that we are pretty sensitive about keeping that road intact. It's hard to come to the council and ask for additional funds. These were not anticipated. But we do think that it was made in the best interests of our road network. We do have room in our budget to accommodate the extra expense. It may come at the price of delaying some work on some other streets, but in consulting with Charles Benson, our street department director, and myself, we feel like we've been a little bit ahead of the curve. We have a little bit of leg room in our overall pavement maintenance plan. And so I would respectfully ask for your consideration to pay Black Forest for the work which has been done.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we approve the request to approve payment to Black Forest Paving, the additional amount.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Let's go on. Lloyd, the next item, consider approval of the Traffic Safety Committee items.
Thank you, Mayor. As the Traffic Safety Committee, we met earlier this evening. I hope that moving through these items, that we don't take a commensurate amount of time that we spent earlier to get through this. So I'm going to make the bold assumption that you've read through these items and that we can move through them quickly. The first item is the consideration of a reduced speed school zone and crossing guard at 325 West, 1000 North. The Traffic Safety Committee has recommended that the City Council approve this installation. And maybe just as a bit of history, there has been a previous crossing located to the east at 275 West. As we investigated that location and coordinated that with the construction on 1000 North, we felt like a better location would be for a crossing at 325 to the west. It kind of splits that block and makes it more uniform for the kids who have to walk from the subdivision to the north. Unbeknownst to the committee and myself, when we last met in 2019, we did approve, and the council did approve, the installation of a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit on 10th North. That becomes the trigger to require an adult crossing guard for elementary-age kids at this location. So the Traffic Safety Committee has recommended to the council that this be approved. It has been included in the police department's budget, and the construction will be modified appropriately to construct this on 1000 North with the reconstruction project. I don't know if you want to have individual motions for each of these items, or if you want to do it collectively. I might recommend that you do them individually.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Were all of these items passed unanimously with the Traffic Safety Committee?
There's one item that, that we do need to probably have some discussion on, item number 6. So for that reason, we may want to take them individually, just so that we get to have that discussion, would be my recommendation as a committee member.
I'd be happy to make a motion that we approve the reduced speed school zone and the crossing guard for 325 West, 10th North as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our second item is the consideration of installation of a 30-mile-an-hour pavement message on North Canyon Road. Over the last year, I've probably received more complaints about speeding on 4th East between Davis Boulevard and the North Canyon area and North Canyon Road itself than any other location in town. As part of the request, the engineering department did a speed study on North Canyon Road. That's posted as 30 miles an hour. What we found, though, was of the roughly 4,000 cars, about 79% of those folks exceed the speed limit. Now, we didn't differentiate between uphill or downhill traffic, but, you know, that sends a pretty good message that people are really not observing the posted speed limit. I'm not the kind of person who wants to move the needle all the way over to its maximum range. I like to move things incrementally. And I think the next incremental step on a road where the speed limits are already posted in 4 locations, 2 up, 2 down, the next logical step would be to paint 30 miles an hour on the road like we've done on Bountiful Boulevard in a couple locations. The Traffic Safety Committee recommends approval of this item to the council.
Any questions on discussion item 2?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Did I say aye? Oh.
Item 3.
Next item is consideration of centerline striping and signage at 2 locations on Hidden Lake Drive. Hidden Lake Drive is the uppermost loop, kind of in the Summerwood subdivision area. On either end of this loop is a fairly short radius curve that's roughly 180 degrees. They're both on a steep incline. One of them is about 15%, which would be a maximum grade allowed. As I reviewed the construction standards for this location, I feel that this is on the very edge of what would be acceptable design in this area. The residents in this area note that traffic up and down don't do a particularly great job of staying one side or the other as they go around the curve. People tend to hug to the inside if they're uphill, or maybe if they're going too fast, that would cause them to go to the outside of the curve on the downhill. I think it would be appropriate to provide some guidance to the traffic up there. There's not a lot of traffic, but given the fact that it's a sharp corner, it's a downhill or an uphill that's fairly tight, it would be prudent to provide some additional information for drivers about where they're expected to be in the road and what's ahead with the signage.
And if I may add to that, I thought a good point that you made during our meeting was that, I can't remember which one of these corners, but it doesn't get a lot of sun. And so in the winter, it's exceptionally icy.
On the north end, yes. The street department affectionately calls it Winterwood. And the engineering department calls it the dark side of the moon.
Do we have a motion for item 3?
So moved.
Second? Kate?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 4.
Thank you. The next item is a consideration of a very short no parking zone at the intersection of the Call Meadows PUD and the Country Springs exit or intersection on 200 West. The Call Meadows Homeowners Association has expressed concern. They've provided a petition from their residents about visibility at that intersection. Most of their concerns relate to cars parking too close to the intersection, and I might note that it's suspected, probably not confirmed at this point, that many of the people who park too close to those intersections are also residents of these particular associations. They report a lot of near misses. As I looked at the traffic accidents over the last 10 years, there have only been 6 reported accidents in 10 years. From an accident perspective, we haven't met the threshold that would require us to make any changes at that intersection. As I've evaluated the geometry there, I find it interesting that on the west side of the street, for the Call Meadows entrance, they have a very large radius. It's a very a set of sweeping curve radiuses that would tend, you would think, to push traffic away from the intersection. In fact, the approach to 200 West from Call Meadows actually widens out to accommodate an in movement, an out movement, and perhaps a left turn lane. But still, they experience these visibility problems on that west side of the street. We haven't received a corresponding complaint from the other side of the road, from Country Springs, where they have a shorter radius. The curves are shorter and would tend to draw people who parked on the east side of the road closer into the intersection. I find that kind of interesting. For those of you who are familiar with our no parking discussions in the recent past, we know that no parking tends to do one thing. It tends to move the parking to someone else's front yard. And so recommending this, it was a real struggle. What to do, what is equitable, what is right. And hence my recommendation to the committee was to put in a very short no parking zone, which would push traffic away from that entrance into Call Meadows, but yet still provide some measure of parking on the street.
Would that be signage or like red curb or?
Yeah, it would be both. It's our policy to include both because in the winter months, it's hard to enforce no parking zones that are only painted red when they're covered in snow and, the sign. It's kind of a belt and suspenders approach.
We have a motion for item number 4.
Motion to approve the no parking signs and the red paint.
Kate, we have a second.
Second.
Millie, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's go on to item number 5.
Thank you. This is an item that inspired a little bit of discussion among the members of the Traffic Safety Committee. For as long as I've been employed here at the city, I don't know that we've had a specific policy related to the adoption of, or the installation of warning signs for children with disabilities. For all other signs that are installed in the city for traffic control, we are required to follow the publication that's called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's adopted nationwide so that users can expect to see standard installations no matter where they go throughout the country. That when a stop sign's put in here, it's done the same way on the other side of the country. The MUTCD does not recognize warning signs for children with disabilities. So this becomes a duty that is taken by the city. I thought it would be good to have a standard policy. These requests don't come along very often, maybe one every 5 or 6 years. The discussion on the policy relates to the very last criteria, 3.4. As I looked at other policies, application processes that are implemented by other cities, many of them require the applicant to pay the entire cost of installation. I felt it would be reasonable that to request that the parents pay for the actual hard material costs and the city provide the labor and equipment to install these. The city does have a little bit of burden to assemble the signs and the posts, mark the appropriate locations, get a blue stake, go out, set them and maintain them. I felt that the costs were fairly reasonable at about $110 to $120 a sign, and with the assumption that, you know, we typically would install 2 signs at a request. That's probably the predominant thing. The committee felt like it would be appropriate to have some guidance from the entire council about eliminating that requirement and having the city fund the entire installation. So that's the issue that we seek the guidance of the council on.
So it's, just for my colleagues, it's a one-time cost, and the life of a sign is about 15 years. And under this policy, to qualify for a sign, a child has to be between the age of 2 and 18. So even if a family were to request a sign at 2, the chances of the sign lasting beyond their 18 years is likely. And so because it's only a one-time cost, and it's a relatively low cost of $125 per sign, and I was approaching it, although signs aren't ADA compliant, so to speak, or in that, I still kind of view it in that category of when we cut out curb and to accommodate, you know, a wheelchair or things like that. I feel, because we don't get these requests very often, that I'm okay with the city covering the cost and not having families buy into it. And so that's kind of where we were hung up. Some of us felt it was okay, or it was appropriate to ask for cities to have a little buy-in. And then some of us thought because it's a relatively low cost, a one-time cost, and it lasts approximately 15 years, if not longer, and we get these requests rarely, that I felt okay for the city to cover the cost. But I'm open to.
Further comments?
Yeah, I'll maybe add some additional thoughts from the committee discussion. You know, further up in our agenda, we've had items for no parking signs and paint that serve a very specific neighborhood, a very specific PUD neighborhood that has a parking issue, and the city is covering the cost of the paint and the signs. And Charles was wonderful to make sure we always knew the cost of paint and signs. Red paint's cheaper. You know, we looked at specific signage and striping for the Summerwood neighborhood, which is not a high traffic area necessarily, but we're not asking that neighborhood to carry the cost of those signs. You know, these signs for children with specific disabilities, maybe they have some effect on the way people drive in those neighborhoods. It may not be a complete and total change of one's driving behavior to see one of those signs, but if it has some modest impact, that seems like that is probably important for that neighborhood and a comfort to that family, and to ask that family to pay for the signs when we don't ask other neighborhoods making very specific requests to help bear the cost of the signs. It seemed a little out of line. There's a family requesting the specific signs for a blind child, and given the way the streets in their neighborhood lay out, they kind of need 3 signs. And so the discussion that kind of we had as a committee from our staff and from the members of the council was, is 3.4 the right call to make when we're not making that type of a request from other neighborhoods that might have a specific need for a stop sign or a crosswalk or a speed limit sign on roads that the rest of us very, very, very rarely may drive.
Other comments?
I'll just get myself in trouble further, so probably I better not. No, I just think that it's different to not charge a neighborhood for a traffic sign than it is to charge an individual. There's an old adage in government, even older than I am, that says that if you want more of something, subsidize it. And I'm not saying we're going to get a proliferation of folks requesting disabled children signage, but as a policy, I'm not opposed to it. But I'm happy to vote with you too. So,
By the way, the official recommendation was to forward it as drafted. With the recommendation, we have the discussion.
great.
So the recommendation was to charge or not charge, or there was not a recommendation?
To forward it as Lloyd had drafted it, which includes the split of costs
Okay.
between the city and the families, but to encourage this interesting discussion. At least that's how I remember it.
So the question is, do we include 3.4 or do we strike it? Do we ask families to pay $125 for a street sign for a disabled child? Or do we think that's an appropriate cost for the city to incur? Or do we split it?
Further discussion?
I motion that we strike 3.4. I think it's, again, kind of going back to the things that the city does to make our buildings and parks ADA compliant. I think it's appropriate to carry that into neighborhoods when it is deemed necessary. And I am comfortable having the city incur that very, very low cost, one-time cost, especially since we have very few of these requests.
Second.
Did I hear a second? Hear a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Millie. Let's go on with discussion item number 6.
Thank you. That discussion should make this discussion very short. Sharon Lloyd, who lives at 72 Viewcrest Circle, has requested the installation of some warning signs for her child, who is young but suffering from a vision disability. I've recommended that signs be installed in 3 locations since they live in kind of a strange proximity of intersections. It really takes 3 to let everybody who's coming near to their house know that they're approaching the home of a child with a disability. So my recommendation is that, the Traffic Safety Committee passes on a recommendation to approve this installation.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Lloyd. That was
Thank
very
you.
appropriate. We appreciate that.
There's
Let's
there's
move on.
One more
One more.
item.
I have one more item. I apologize for the error in the Traffic Safety Committee agenda.
Excuse me. Yeah, item number 6.
We do have one final item. That's the consideration for the installation of 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on Indian Springs Road between Bountiful Boulevard and the 3100 South, 400 East intersection. This is a fairly steep road. It's very narrow. As you go downhill from Bountiful Boulevard, there's a very sharp curve to the left, and that's signed with the chevrons to let traffic know that, hey, sharp curve ahead. It is a steep road, though. Many of the residents in the lower portion of Indian Springs comment, though, that speeds are excessive. We did conduct a traffic speed study in the area. We counted 885 vehicles. 90% of those vehicles exceeded the speed limit. When you're talking about traffic, we always use the benchmark of the 85th percentile for traffic speeds. In this case, the 85th percentile from the count was 34 miles an hour. That's almost 10 miles an hour over. That would indicate it's time to do something. The Traffic Safety Committee has recommended to the council that 2 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs be installed on this road segment. One as you come down from Bountiful Boulevard, one as you come up from the 3100 South, 400 East intersection. With the commitment that we do, the engineering department would do another speed study in a year, take a look at what effect it's had, and perhaps bring this back to the Traffic Safety Committee if we don't see any measurable results.
Motion to approve the installation of the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit signs and the request that this speed study be conducted a year from now.
Do we have a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Second, aye.
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 Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Consider approval of the bid from REDD Engineering and Construction for the cemetery shop improvement and expansion in the amount of $195,456. Raquel.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. Appreciate your time tonight. There's lots of times when I bring items to you for approval that benefit the citizens of the city. However, this time it's about improving infrastructure at the cemetery to allow the staff there to continue to provide great service at our cemetery. We've been watching the condition of the existing buildings over time as Gino and his staff has performed their work there. And with the uptick in the amount of burials that we're doing of all sorts, we feel that it's time and necessary to make some improvements over there. We've been doing counts and been watching the average of burial plot sales. And as you do your math there, that 5 to 6 years might stretch out to be 7 or 8, depending on what those sales are doing. We anticipate with the opening of Plat R, which was just completed, that those sales might tick up over the next 1 or 2 years. Gino's already expressed that there's a lot of folks in town that are interested in buying plots there. So we anticipate that average sale to go up a bit. That's why I've estimated out there about 5 to 6 years. regardless, we will have to, within that time frame, move to the east property there at the cemetery and start improving plots over there for burials. That's going to make his job and his staff's job a little bit more difficult because of the distance they're going to have to travel, the amount of product that they're going to have to store. They don't have the yard space as it is right now to do that. So these are some of the issues that we're looking at that's driving this improvement. What we're looking at is taking down the existing rock house that's part of the compound right there where his maintenance building is. We've lost the use of the restroom there that's primarily been used by the employees. The pipe leading out to the septic tank's all been collapsed. The septic tank is now collapsed. Gino and his staff now have to go up to the office to use the facilities there. There's been a fire in there over the past few years that's caused some damage in that house. Some of the rock is starting to fall and crumble off the building itself, so it's presenting itself to be a hazard, and he uses that building there to store a lot of his equipment, his mowing equipment, some of the small hand equipment that he uses. So we're recommending that we take that building down, that we add 2 additional bays to the existing shop on the east side of the building, and then incorporating that area where the house is with the backyard as yard space for his operations. With that, we went out and we sought and contacted 3 construction companies to offer bids and submittals based on that information. We received 2 bids and 1 non-responsive bid. Both bids came in right in and about where estimates were by staff. Red Engineering's and Construction's bid was $195,455, and we'll take the 30 cents and use that as contingency. Is that all right? Okay. Foxwood Construction came in at $226,300, and then Centerpoint Construction was the no bid or the non-responsive bid. Given that information, staff recommends that the council approve and give staff the authority to enter into a construction contract with Red Engineering for the amount of $195,456. I'll answer any questions.
I have a question, unless you're making a motion or question.
Go ahead.
I think it is important that the staff have bathroom facilities available. I was wondering if the restrooms are also available to the public, any guests of the cemetery that are there for ceremonies.
They have used them in the past, yeah. Yeah, they have been using them in the past, so.
Okay, so the new building, we would anticipate that would be open and available. That was it, thank you.
Thank you for doing so much with so little. I feel like your staff really does a good job of maintaining the cemetery, and I know that you stretch, when you were remodeling before the house, the place where families come when they're there to buy plots, and it just seemed like you did a lot with a little to try to make it look nice, and so I appreciate what you do there, and the cemetery looks great, and so I'm happy to make this motion to approve the cemetery maintenance shop expansion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Brock.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Let's go on to the next item, number 10. Consider approval of the site plan for Thirst Drinks, 1545 South Main Street, with conditions described. Kendall Black.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem, Council, thanks for hearing this. Alex Winder, representing Thirst Drinks, specialty drink and treat company, request a conditional use permit for a change of use. So they're currently trying to go into the old Enterprise Rent-A-Car spot there just south of the 5 Points intersection. In the general commercial zone, the code says that if you change a use, it's required a site plan review that goes before the city council. So that's what we're here for. So they, normally it needs 6 stacking lanes, so for the cars in the row for a restaurant with a drive-through, which this is considered. They're providing 15, so they're gonna provide above and beyond what is needed to try and avoid some of the issues that we see in other parts of the city. They would be entering and exiting from 200 West both. If you want to look on what would be page 96, it'll actually show you the map or the site plan. But it is, and it's also drive-through only, so there's not a issue with parking. The parking spaces will be provided for employees only. There's not a walk-up window or anything like that. So, Planning Commission put forth a positive recommendation for this unanimously, and where'd it go? Sorry. And then we recommend that the city council review the proposal and approve the site plan with the conditions that are outlined on page 94. I will answer any questions if you have any.
Did I hear you right? There's not a walk-up window, correct?
Yeah, there's no walk-up window at all.
Where's the drive-through going to be located? Is it there on the west side?
So it starts at the northeast corner, and then we'll go down to the southwest corner and loop through. There's a drive-through there. Right now, it has a cinder block wall on the west side, but that's going to be removed, so it's a pass-through again. Apparently, there's a garage door on the east side, but that'll all be opened up.
Kendall, did you bring samples of your drinks?
It's not mine. I work for the city. He didn't this time. The owner here, he's here, but.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the site plan for Thirst Drinks.
Further discussion?
I have a further question. One of the most contentious discussions on the local page on a social media platform I will not mention again today is about cars backing up onto city streets while they're waiting for their beverage. Are we relatively confident, and is the Planning Commission confident, that these cars are not going to back up and block traffic on the street?
If I may step in,
Please.
we are restricted by what our current code requires, which for a drive-through is 6 parking spaces. I can't make that commitment, but the number here is, what was it, 12?
15.
15 is certainly more than the ones that we struggle with, the 3 that I can think of on the spot.
I do like this double stack drive-through.
Correct. So we cannot make an actual assurance on their behalf, but we do appreciate them coming in from 200 West, putting a sign on Main Street saying that this is not the right way, go through the roundabout and come back. And this would be one that meets the code a lot better. We could do some internal research to see if we need to bump that number from 6 to anything else. But it certainly meets the code, and we don't foresee any issues.
Super. I guess the fact that it meets the code is the real key here. So, thank you for that.
I have an additional question along these same lines. I happen to frequent a neighboring dry cleaner to this location, and making the turns from either of the streets as you come off of 5 Points, I believe they're both striped with double yellows, which means we probably shouldn't be making lefts, and because of the roundabout traffic, we considered restricting the exit from this establishment so that people are not attempting to make left turns? They only make a right turn to exit.
I'm sorry, which street are you referring to, Main or 200 West?
It looks like to me they're exiting on 200 West.
Correct. So your question is, if we have a right out,
Right only. Is that right? Yeah. I just don't want them to be tempted to cross the double yellow as they exit with the traffic that comes off the.
Isn't there a median there?
There is right at the dry cleaners, but if you
But
go
not
one further where
behind
the
this.
where the
I see what
the
you're saying.
enterprise was there, it is not, but it's still, it can be a little
That would
bit
help
congested
traffic
there,
flow
is
if
what
it was-
I was wondering.
We did not look into that. I don't know if it had anything to do with specific categories of the street. I'm looking at Lloyd for guidance on this item. But that certainly, we did not discuss that with the Planning Commission.
I don't think that there's a real concern about this. 200 West is a fairly low volume street. A double yellow line doesn't preclude a left turn movement across it. You know, what that does tell drivers though is you can't pass here.
All right, well, I look forward to it coming to a traffic safety committee near you soon. Based on my dry cleaning experience. But if you're otherwise confident, I will stand down. There was a motion, but I don't know if the motion included also the staff recommendation, since there's several on landscaping as well.
I'd be happy to withdraw my motion so that you can provide a substitute motion.
And
Oh, is this turnabout as fair play?
before we go on.
This is called education of Richard.
Before we go on to that, could I just ask, because I do think if we had a right turn only, that would help with traffic flow. I remember when we were looking at the condos that are going in on the corner of Fifth South and Orchard, the suggestion was made of putting a pork chop in the driveway that would facilitate traffic going to the right, and that wouldn't have the need of the streets department. Is that correct? Because that would be just a recommendation from the city?
You're talking about doing that for the exit out of the drive-through to make,
Or to have their curbing, because that would keep traffic going for sure, to prevent backups. Or maybe that's something
professional
we,
advice on that is that if it's just a sign, it'll get ignored. And the example of that I would give would be the exit from Quick Quack on
but I'm not suggesting a sign, I'm suggesting the curbing
Pork chop.
to turn, so they can't really turn left.
I guess if the council wants to make that a requirement, it can be done.
As a frequenter of all of our fabulous drink locations, plus our fabulous custard location that suffers from these problems where you back up those waiting to place their order as you attempt a difficult left, that's where that concern came to mind for me as I looked at that design. Otherwise, I'm thrilled that if we have another one, perhaps we lessen all of the impacts at the other places that back up by making sure that everyone is fully hydrated.
You gotta add, they have beignets and they also have
Oh, well,
sweet
we've
and
changed
salty pretzels.
I'll say that.
Had to add that?
entirely. If I'd
Okay.
known that there were
Okay.
beignets, it's
I had to
probably, there's
put
no
that in there.
traffic we can solve now. It'll just be constant.
So Millie, do you want to add that to the recommendations then?
Can I ask a procedural question for Francisco and Lloyd? Since this is, I believe, a recommendation for their preliminary site plan approval, is it the preliminary or is it the final approval?
No, I believe this should be for a combination preliminary and final.
Okay, that takes away one of my ideas, which was to, before the final, have it looked at. Never mind.
There's on the planning commission, there's a traffic engineer, and I don't believe he was there. He was not there.
He was not there.
Yeah. But it does seem like in reviewing the site plan, I mean, it meets the code. So we have that assurance. And then Lloyd, you're probably the closest thing to a traffic expert that we have here. So, I mean, what's your advice? What do you think?
If we were trying to put a double drive-through of traffic out onto 200 West, yeah, I think it would be appropriate to make restricted to right turn only. I don't think it's necessary to do that in this instance.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge that Lloyd is a traffic expert and not just the closest thing we've got.
Thank you, yes, sorry.
I would like to clarify that an expert is a drip under pressure.
So then are we going to go with the recommendations as printed?
Well, I think currently we don't have a motion on the table because it was withdrawn.
We don't have a motion yet.
I'll throw it out there. I motion, no disrespect, Mr. Cheney.
Untaken.
I respect your opinion very much. But given the fact that I do frequent these drive-throughs a lot, in fact, that's when we look at a car, we make sure it goes through, it can fit through drive-throughs.
That's fine. That's fine. Don't buy a truck.
I know, really. Given the fact that if you wanted to turn left here, and if we did restrict it to a right turn only, the roundabout is right there, so you go around the roundabout and then you are heading south fairly easily if you did want to turn left, but you are pushed to the right. So I motion that we add curbing, or that we suggest to the developer that we add curbing to encourage traffic to go north only when they exit Second West.
Along with the other recommendations.
Correct.
North would be
Clarify.
turning left.
Something on that.
North would be turning left. Do you want them to
Yeah.
turn south or north?
Oh, excuse me,
Or do you want them left or right?
right.
Okay, so that's south.
Can I just add one additional piece of information? It's currently a double yellow line, which technically it's illegal to turn left there anyway,
I thought,
correct?
didn't you say that?
Misunderstanding. I know I've heard a previous city attorney say that, so.
Say that a double yellow is, you can't turn left, or you can? You can? Oh.
I'm looking to a
I'm
guy
re-
in a blue
yeah,
uniform in the back
I'm-
corner.
I'm actually relying on that guy in the blue. The guy in the blue is the one that pointed that out to me.
May I, if, are we going to Chief Beeler? As he comes up, may I offer something, and I understand we're in the middle of a motion? I would recommend, since the council is interested in limiting that right out towards the south, I'm going to throw something here. What if we give them a one-year trial period? And then in the 1 year, if it becomes a problem, we have them come back and address it. I'm looking at my attorney, see if we can have something to that effect, if the council is willing to entertain such motion.
I'd be comfortable with that.
I gotta say, I'm actually less comfortable with that. In part because of, I grew up in Bountiful and have spent so many summer nights in line at Nelson's for custards, backing up on 2600, and have a healthy habit at Swig and at Fizz and all of those places, and have sat in those lines as well. And I am excited that this proposal includes this double entrance to stack the cars in that way. But we have those known problems. We each hear about them frequently, and it becomes, it could become a problem for this business if a year from now we said, shut down your operations for a few days, rip out the apron skirt to your exit, and pour a different curb and gutter configuration, where we, are then limiting their ability to. I'd rather take the opportunity to, even if it means taking this back and asking the Planning Commission to look at this specific point, I would rather do that and feel really confident that they have considered whether this stacking alleviates all of those types of concerns with the 5 points roundabout and the interesting little island that, or road barrier that separates, just a little bit down from them, rather than have that business have to come back in a year and make changes.
Mr. Mayor, could I make a comment?
Please.
With the gentle reminder of our city manager, he pointed out that there is a future change in this area. And that change is that the Davis School District is going to do something with Bountiful Elementary. That may involve access off 200 West near this location. I apologize that that never entered into the consideration on this. Certainly, that would change
Dynamics.
how I would view the exit out of this facility. If we had a bustling street full of kids, moms, and buses twice a day, 3 times a day, we certainly would want to promote efficient traffic movement, even if it did mean sending traffic south down 200 West. They can cut through at 1700 South to get back to Main Street, or they can continue on to 1800 South and come back to Main Street down there. There's actually a couple of options for them that they're fairly convenient. So I apologize for my previous remarks. I retract them. I would support a restricted movement off the exit of that with the consideration and acknowledgement that there's going to be a change across the street at some point.
Could I ask, Lloyd, whether you are more comfortable with us making a motion that adds a council recommendation to your staff recommendations, or would you appreciate the opportunity to go wordsmith that better and bring it back to the next council meeting or a planning commission meeting? I love making motions on the fly, but
I have full confidence that the members of the city council can enunciate a motion that we can interpret and apply.
So could we just keep my motion as it stands? Which was?
Sure.
Might
It's okay
I
with me.
opine before we complete that motion? Pretty please. My opinion is, if it's illegal to turn left across a double yellow, have we come to a consensus on that yet?
Yeah,
Chief?
I actually just read the code, and it is not, but a highway authority, in this case is us, can provide exceptions or create signage that would make it illegal. So we
So
can,
if the majority of the council wants to make it right turn only, I would request that we ask the developer to put a sign up and not expensive concrete work. And if the sign is not functional, then maybe we can do something down the road. But there's probably not unlimited capital going into the refurbishment of this property. And I think that us adding significant cost to it.
that would also be
detrimental.
consistent with what was approved with the quick quack on 500 West. There's a right turn only sign. There's no physical barriers, but there is a right turn only sign.
And do people follow it?
You'd probably have to ask our,
he keeps
Police
trying to
chief
go
on
back
that
to
one.
that far corner.
I don't know. It's a tough intersection. It's right there by that light. So I think most people do. But even with the pork chops, if you sit out there long enough, you'll see people turning left on pork chops.
I know we
Yeah,
were
there's people in this room
sensitive.
that may have done that before.
We're
Maybe.
sensitive tonight for costs incurred of families. I think we should be sensitive to costs that we demand from folks that are trying to start up a business as well.
I'd like to ask, in the spirit of what Councilman Higginson is suggesting, I would like to ask a question of either our planning staff or our engineering staff. While they haven't yet poured any concrete or driveway exits, would we want to ask them to orient the slants that appear at that exit in a different way, so that we're not asking for a pork chop, but just that those aren't angled in a way that indicates, any type of action, so that that's clear on the design, and then only require a sign
Well-
indicating the turn?
As that was proposed, that exit wasn't going to be messed with. It was the other ones. So that one was going to stay the same.
We have an existing, we do have an existing picture. Do we have the ability to look at this on screen?
Yeah, we can connect if necessary.
I just want to make sure I understand on the existing picture where,
Look
the
at,
spirit of getting it right.
if you look at how the building is oriented, the orientation of the building if that's helpful. So you have to kind of turn it.
Have to do this.
I know.
Landscape.
If you're comfortable with your motions, that was my last remaining question in the spirit of trying to align my views with my esteemed colleague holding down the far other end of the spectrum on this issue, was just to make sure that if we were only going to require a sign, which I can be entirely sympathetic to that cost, that I wanted to just make sure that we, in the design, we're orienting the way that is angled so that it doesn't encourage drivers to ignore the sign.
There you go, Keith. We have a Google aerial photograph up.
Okay, so can you walk me through this, making sure that this exit is oriented the right way on
Yes.
this?
So the vehicles would come in from the northeast corner of the site. They would loop in 2 lanes, and about here become one, and they would go through the, I think that was a drive-through at one point, but they would remove the concrete masonry unit and then come out 200 West. This existing approach is proposed to be removed.
It still shows in this drawing,
No, it's on this side. It's right here.
right there?
Shows it filled with
So
landscaping.
what's that drawing? What's this one stays, though?
Yeah, this one does stay, but because of the circulation aspect, we have recommended that they put a no entry sign, so it doesn't conflict with vehicles already on queue. So they have to go up to Main Street. Anyone from Main Street would have to go to the roundabout, come back on 200 West, and then enter the site. So it has a one-way in, one-way out configuration. We kept the no entry sign here. We debated it internally, but we kept it ultimately in case there's, so it doesn't cause confusion for the patrons, as perhaps the line is only 50% there, so it doesn't start stacking vehicles towards Main Street. So we kept that recommendation, do not enter here, go up and around, as the circulation has more space to stack the, I forget the number, 15 vehicles. Does that help your
So we're
question?
gonna leave a curb and gutter cutout and just hope no driver thinks, oh.
We're gonna put up a sign. And also, I believe it's going to be, Kendall, it's going to be painted. So it's gonna have 2 bright yellow lanes shown
yeah.
on the asphalt.
Yeah, if you look on the site plan, the one that, again, would be page 96, you can see the lanes on there, but yeah, they'll be painted, the 2
So-
separate lanes.
So the northwest access acts as a bailout. Oh, the line's too long, I'm just gonna hit another one. Hopefully not.
They'll stay. They want it. It's good. You're gonna want it.
The paint could enhance that exit lane as well, for less money than concrete.
Correct,
That's true.
the paint and the sign in combo.
Yeah.
Are you,
I call that the belt and suspenders approach.
That's what I've heard earlier tonight.
are you
have to just
comfortable,
restrict their trees.
council members, with passing this motion with a sign?
So do we need to make a new motion?
No, I think you have I think you have a motion on the table
So
for
I
a sign.
I withdraw, no, my first motion was for curb.
Was it for a pork?
So
for a
I
pork chop?
withdraw, I withdraw my motion for curbing that would encourage the traffic flow to turn right. And I replace that motion with a right turn only sign.
Second.
Oh, my goodness.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, did you want to amend the striping?
No.
Okay.
I was thinking about whether we should restrict how good their treats can be so we don't encourage way overstacking, but I know that that's beyond our powers and we wouldn't want to do that.
Not gonna happen. Good?
Thank you.
I look
Thank you.
forward to sitting in a line for their tasty
do too.
treats.
Let's move on. Consider approval of the annual Tyler Technology Software Maintenance Contract in the amount of $87,045. Alan, would you go
Thank
on,
you.
please?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Almost 10 years ago exactly, we were negotiating a contract to purchase about $580,000 worth of software. The software handles all of our financials, utility billing, several other business license software, and the typical software SSMA, or software maintenance agreement, costs in the industry are 15%, and this is about 15% of that original cost. So this is just a request to have council approve the renewal of the Tyler Technologies software maintenance contract for the total of $87,045.20.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Alan. Let's move on to number 12. Consider approval of a contract with Magellan Advisors for broadband facility, feasibility services in the amount of $67,500. Alan.
Thank
begin,
you.
please.
Since we've already covered most of this, I just thought I'd read the last part of the staff report, which is pages 5 to 6 in your packet. The recommendation: it is expected that as a detailed analysis is shared at this council work session, the mayor and council will have enough information to make a decision as to whether they would like to move ahead with a provider-owned and operated fiber network, or to further explore the options of building a city-owned fiber network. If the mayor and council feel they would like to proceed with a provider-owned and operated network, we recommend that the city enter into contract negotiations with Utopia Networks. Engaging with Utopia would require a revenue pledge from the city as a condition of the partnership. If the mayor and council decide they would like to pursue the option of building a city-owned network, the RFI Review Committee and the IT staff recommend that the attached contract with Magellan Advisors be approved for $67,500.
Further discussion?
So I don't feel totally comfortable moving ahead in any specific, like I don't want to close the door on Utopia. And for that reason, I don't feel 100% comfortable just saying we're moving to a city-owned network, but I do think it's worth exploring. And like I mentioned earlier, I'd like to have kind of an expanded committee where we include a few members of the community. And so I'd like to just hear what the other council members think.
Further discussion?
I have, as we've just seen, it's really dangerous when I play junior engineer to Lloyd, but I enjoy doing it, so I'm going to continue. There's this heads up. As I was looking at the charts that Alan had for us in our work session about construction timelines, all the timelines are out a bit, but one of the timelines, one of the points he brought up in discussion, I think it was of the Google proposal, was that Google had a very fast timeline proposed, but seemed to be unaware of our construction moratorium in the winter. And so my question for our city engineer is to help me understand that winter construction moratorium and its impact on micro trenching, macro trenching, in-betweeny trenching, boring, or any other ways in which you might put fiber optic cables in the ground.
Anytime you do a pavement repair, you want to have a very good bond between the two surfaces you're trying to put back together, particularly on the edge of a trench. As I think about micro trenching during the winter, the asphalt is cold, it's brittle. You're going to be trying to adhere a product to that. Oftentimes, within asphalt pavement itself, it does retain some moisture. So you've got a lot of things working against you. The moisture is going to prevent adhesion between those surfaces. I don't know the exact properties of the materials that they would propose to put back into that trench. I'd certainly be interested to look at that. But typically, paving, patching that we do in the wintertime is temporary. We end up coming back in the spring and putting in a permanent fix. That would be a major concern for me for construction in the middle of the winter.
So given where we are at this point, at the tail end of August, and I think every one of the 4 that were proposed had a 2 to 3 month best case scenario start point. At that point, we will have hit our construction moratorium for the winter season. Is that accurate? So we are not within a construction window that could start until next spring, realistically.
And your timeline, yeah, that's correct. Over the past few years, though, we've tried to be very accommodating for work that needs to be done. If the weather is good, if we have Indian summer till Thanksgiving or beyond, oftentimes we will issue permits to contractors for work in the street. We may be fairly critical about or limit what they can do as far as actual work in the asphalt. If they're doing work behind the curb and gutter in the park strip, or maybe boring under the sidewalk, we typically will let that go and try to get that work done. We realize that they have needs that they need to meet. The times that we get a little tighter on issuing permits, though, is when the weather is bad and the work that's proposed is actually in the pavement, whether it's asphalt or concrete. We really try and limit that.
Okay, so we're, under any of the 4, likely not looking at a construction start time, though, until, if a decision was made immediately and they started their planning process or their contract negotiation process, we would hit the moratorium for the most part. Okay, thank you. I wanted to understand that better, just so I didn't play junior engineer and ask for a pork chop or anything.
I'm a little concerned we're going to get the cart in front of the horse. That's why I think it would be important for us to see what our advisors on this could give us information on. I think that would give us a lot of added input. And I think it's worth the time to let them do an analysis and come back with that and give us more information, is my thought. Gary.
A comment about what Councilwoman Harris said. There's nothing, if we did an analysis with Magellan or anybody, there's nothing that would prevent the city from still going with Utopia or Google at the end of the day. So maybe just a clarification on that recommendation. Staff's recommendation, the committee's recommendation is we feel like we owe it to ourselves and the community to study this option because we think it has the potential in the long run to be cheaper and to be better for the residents as well as the city at large. We would only recommend Utopia now if the council felt like you didn't want to spend any more time on the issue. There's nothing by studying it that would prevent you later from saying, yeah, we still want to use Utopia.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I want to thank Councilmember Bradshaw for bringing up the construction moratorium, because it has really bothered me, the idea of waiting longer and not getting on with the decision and the process. So I will try to be patient. It still doesn't allay all of the fears, though, or all of the worries of a consultant who is consulting us into additional work. And if there's a way that we can, ward off that possibility or prevent that possibility, I might be more comfortable with that as well.
I wonder if we could use this time that we have before winter, when we probably won't be able to be useful in our construction anyway, to just do an RFP and see what other options there may be for consultants, and include some community members in the committee to have a little more of a thorough look at it.
So now I'm going to argue the other side. If we do an RFP, then we're going to use up all of our consulting time doing an RFP and selecting someone and then turning them loose on. That's another worry, that's just going to push it down the road even further.
What's your opinion, Alan, about an RFP?
I agree with Richard that we could start the RFP process. That could take several weeks to compile and then several weeks to analyze the responses. An RFP would generally be released countrywide. We could get a lot of responses and then have to analyze those. Potentially, it could give us a better option, but I think it's going to also complicate the procedure quite a bit.
Two other comments. I want to say, first of all, that Mr. Timmerman from Utopia has sent us some very informative emails, and I wanted to thank him for that. And I don't think he's still here, but I should have thanked him for that, as well as Steve Freebairn from Bountiful for Fiber. The details and the technical details that he had in an email to us, I believe yesterday, were very helpful to me as well, as we try to get more educated on the kind of network we want and the requirements that we should have for it. So,
If we do decide to move ahead with this, with Magellan, then my only contingency would just be that we could expand the working group a little bit to include some residents in that committee, and so that we have, I do think that brings, not only does it bring kind of some local help and perspective, but it also, there really are quite a few experts that just live right here, that are willing to donate their time, that really know their stuff, like you mentioned, Richard, so it is helpful.
Any further discussion? We have a motion to, or a motion to deny, or amend the motion.
well, let's see if, I'll make an awkward motion and see if I get a second and a vote on it. I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the Magellan contract, with the understanding that, or with the condition that, any future work aside from this consulting work would be bid separate from the work that they'll be doing on this project, and that they wouldn't automatically be grandfathered in or grandmothered in, or whatever the politically correct word is for that process.
We have a motion on the floor. Any more discussion?
Just a question that, are you, is the council amenable to adding some committee members from the community so that we have that representation?
You comfortable with adding that, Richard?
I don't have a problem with that.
I think the question I would have is if under Councilman Higginson's motion to ask for a feasibility study, to me, since we're locked out of any meaningful construction for 6 months, there's a window to look at that feasibility study and then compare it against whether Utopia or Google, are options to still consider compared to Entry Point or Strata. That makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure what role a citizen panel plays in doing the feasibility study, because we're hiring an expert consultant to study the feasibility of that process.
So to clarify, what I would request is that we add a few residents to our already formed committee, and if there are times when they're meeting to review, there is just some expertise, like Richard mentioned, from people in our community, and I know that it's going to be a better outcome if we include more people that are experts.
Are those committee meetings open to the public?
No.
No?
They're just staff meetings. They're not publicly noticed meetings, nor would that necessarily be particularly productive.
Can I ask Gary, so the RFI review committee it's not for lack of a better term, a permanent standing committee. It was a committee created for a specific purpose to review the RFIs. That process has closed. We've reviewed the RFIs. If we went under this motion down the path to look at a feasibility study, wouldn't that feasibility study then be presented back to the council in an open and public meeting or in a work session?
Yes. Yeah.
When citizen input would be appropriate? and welcome.
So another thought, because I can see both thoughts here. Another thought would be that instead of because there really isn't a role for that committee if Magellan comes on, because you're right, the information at that point is all just going to come back to the city council for discussion in an open meeting. But I think at that point, there might be value in having, whether we want to call it a communication committee or a blue ribbon commission or something of that sort that would involve a broader swath of residents in addition to the staff that could help take that information and make recommendations and communicate it back to the city council and back to the community. I don't know, Kendall, and if that's something that would meet the need that you're after.
So what I'm hoping for is we have a committee that advises us about art, public art in the city. We have a committee that advises us about trails. And these are volunteers that have a special interest and a special expertise. And they are people that applied and were selected because of their interest and their expertise. And in my opinion, Magellan, them doing a study will help us with feasibility. They will help us understand what the options are, pros and cons. But this entity that is a separate resident committee would be a good body to evaluate what they're recommending and to consider, options as well. So to me, it just seems like it would be wise to include the committee that was in place. I really appreciate Alan West, Richard, the department heads that spent hours of time working on this. But no one except Alan that I'm aware of is an IT expert that was serving on that committee. And so we have people right here in our own community that are IT experts. And so to me, it seems like we'd want to take advantage of a resident committee that is helping with this process, that's helping as we advise us, as the art and as the trails committee does.
My only hesitation, I see where you're coming from, but my only hesitation, trails and art, and I'm grateful for the people who serve on those committees and serve on our planning commission and our light and power commission. The only thing is this is potentially a $50 to $60 million project that the costs or that the city would incur. And we were elected to make those decisions, not a privately interviewed committee. I'm happy to take recommendations and information from staff and recommendations from residents, but with such a big purchase, I'm hesitant to lay that burden on people who are not elected and who might not have the same weight of accountability or responsibility that the five of us might feel.
I totally respect what you're saying. It does make sense. This, what I'm envisioning would be an advisory committee, so they would have no power to make final decisions. That, of course, we can't abdicate that. They would just be advisory and say, this is what we recommend, but then ultimately it's always,
But
of
that's
course.
what our taxpayer dollars are used to pay our city staff to do.
Right, and like I said, they're not IT experts either.
The scope of this project is far beyond IT, though. We're talking about engineering, we're talking about construction management. I mean, it's much broader than just IT. But I think for me, the thing that's undefined is what the role of the committee would be relative to the Magellan recommendation. Because I think what you're suggesting is that Magellan would do a study, they would then run that past this committee who would then filter the results for the city council. And I don't think you want filtered results.
So I don't want filtered results, but I do like the idea of getting more resident input and more IT-specific expertise. I mean, like Richard said, Steve Freeburn has given some good information, and I have a neighbor that's an IT guy, and he's given me some really good, valuable information. And so getting that expertise as part of this process, the people that are in our community that care about this the most, if we get them involved, it will only be a good thing.
But then it also comes down to who the people, there's going to be conflict. The more people we get involved, the more conflict of interest there could potentially be. And so we would have to do a thorough vetting process, and I mean, everything would have to be above board, because again, this is a huge, huge decision for the city and
Absolutely.
for our residents. And so to your original point of conflict of interest with Magellan, that would then trickle down to any official city-sponsored committee. I'm not saying we don't have input from residents, but as far as a city-sponsored committee that would potentially be on the hook legally in some respects, or maybe not, I don't know.
As an advisory board,
would there be anything?
they would just be advising.
You know, we need to move forward here.
Can
I think what we need to do is look at the contract that's been given to us, and let's approve that contract and get Magellan to come back with their recommendations, then we go from there. I think the staff has given us a great opportunity here, and I think we should move with it and approve the contract to Magellan for $67,500, and let's get that back and let's move forward. Do we have more discussion, or do we have
So I think there's a motion by Richard
Yes.
to do that, with the caveat that anything beyond the scope of this would have to go through an additional RFP process, not just a.
And I second Richard's motion.
Okay. I have a second here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I hear? Aye, okay, it's unanimous. Let's move on. Thank you. Thank you. There's
Just with due respect, I do want to continue the discussion about.
Well, this is a start. Again, I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse. Sure. Let's put our ducks in a row here, and I think that's what this start out, and what the staff has told us is we need to start this process going. Then let's move forward. We have time. We have time. Let's go ahead. Consider approval of the bid from Annexter Power Solutions to purchase 477 ACSR wire, the amount of $30,917. Alan, would you come forward and present that to us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. It's great to be here tonight with these items. The first item we have, and I will tell you, we did meet with the Power Commission this morning, and all three of these items come with the unanimous support of the Power Commission. This first one we have is wire, and as you know, we've been working on a project to rebuild the line going up Valverde Road. This would be the primary conductor that would go up on top that we've been looking at. We've been out looking to find several, and it really become, and I'm going to say, I hate to use the COVID word, but COVID has really impacted our ability to get materials. We actually come back and found that this wire actually was a reasonable price for what we paid before, but it was the only one that they were able to find. And these people, they had it in stock, and that's why they were willing to do it, but we didn't have to pay a premium for it. So that's why you'll find that there really is only the one quote, because people can't find it, but they just did happen to have this available, and they gave it to us, and it's within about the same price that we bought the last wire from. So it would be the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we buy this 477 wire, the 17,340 feet from Annexter Power for the total of $30,917. Again, it is within the identified project to rebuild 3100 South.
Do we have a motion?
I'd be happy to make a motion that we approve the purchase. I'd also reiterate what Alan said, that if this wire wasn't sitting in a yard already somewhere, we would be months away from being able to get a hold of it. So this is a rare opportunity that I think we should take.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Let's go to the next item.
Okay, the next item we have is purchase of conduit. And you'll notice there's various lengths and sizes. This is actually conduit that we went out to order to purchase to extend from Bountiful Boulevard over to the B. And then it said that this might happen this fall, whether it happens this fall or this spring, we went out to get the conduit to be able to put that in. As you might note, as you're getting through it, conduit is very difficult to get and very expensive. We had an opportunity to get this, and I did visit with the city manager on that, and we did move forward and buy this conduit. So I'm here asking for real forgiveness on this, because this is just sitting in our yard at this point. I will tell you, though, that our purchasing agent checked on what the price of it would be. If we was to have went and bought this week, it's almost double what this price is. And the worst part about that is this conduit is still expensive from what we've been paying, but it has gotten worse and not getting better. So I'm somewhat asking for forgiveness from this, to purchase this conduit from Annixter for the $72,510. And hopefully I don't have to write a personal check, because this one is sitting in our yard at this point, so.
Well, I think
be
it's
happy-
wisdom on your part. We're saving money in the long run by doing this.
It is, but I guess.
Yes, that's wisdom. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd be happy to make this motion, especially as the connection from Bountiful Boulevard to the B is a road we'd all like to see move forward. So motion to approve and grant forgiveness to Alan.
Second?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ellen, there's another item.
Yeah, the last one we have is a directional boring approval, and as we go out through the winter, we collect streetlights, wires that go bad, and we don't wait, and we put a bid out in the spring. And if you remember, we did do that, and here, if I came back in June, and we got an extension for that because there was 2 more that failed, and I mentioned we had a couple of more. We have actually 4 more wires that have burned up. 2 of them are under the road for streetlights, and 2 of them are in residential services that we're responsible for, that happen to be in homes that have retaining walls. I know there's one, for instance, that if you notice in the patch, we have to go up the street, put a box, and come back instead of going straight up how the original wire was, because it comes out of our box underneath the retaining wall, and it's got like a 10-foot thing, and we can't get the boring machine, can't go through that. We have contacted Black & McDonald, who we initially went out for the bore and actually extended out, but we would like to extend an additional $89,790 to their contract, which would give us a total of $455,656 for their total contract. They've indicated they can get this done before the October 15th, which basically will get the 2 homeowners that we have like an extension cord running over the ground right now, and also get the streetlights that are bad and will back up. We'll have everything working before winter and start collecting them again. This is a budgeted item. We're within budget, obviously, because we just started in a new year. We identify some for distribution and also for streetlights. So it'd be the staff and the Power Commission recommendation that we extend the contract for another $89,790 for the total of $455,655 for this year.
Any questions?
Can you pull fiber at the same time?
Yeah. Kate,
Is it too soon?
no, it's a great question.
No,
It is, we have this problem where I guess we have a lot of wires that were too close that burn up. Can you co-locate wires for power and wires for fiber?
You could, however, if you come back to logistics, you have to bring fiber and drop it at every other house essentially, so you can get back to the houses. And what we're doing with this is we're going down the street and sometimes going 3 or 4 houses. So you could potentially, as we were boring through there, drop it back out as you're going back through that. That may be something you could look at into the future, so.
Thank you for answering my randomly posed question. I'm happy to approve the budget to add additional boring at the price of $89,790.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Alan.
All right, thank you,
Appreciate
appreciate it, thank you.
I thought it was a well-timed question.
It was.
Yes, it was, thank you.
Let's next consider the approval of $30,193 for road mill repair cost provided by the Goodfellow Corporation. Charles Benson. Charles.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Unfortunately, our road mill broke down. We are one of the last few cities that actually pave our own roads, and this road mill is an integral part of that. It is built as a heavy-duty piece of equipment, but breakdowns do happen on occasions. Our main planetary drive for the main drum failed on us and needs to be replaced. Our local road tech dealer is Goodfellow Corporation, and they have quoted us with parts and labor, $30,193.08 for this repair. Respectfully ask that the council approve that was repair request so we can get back on our paving operations.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we approve the amount needed for the road mill repair costs.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Council.
Charles, for coming. Next, we'll have Chief Ed come up. Consider approval of purchase of 4 police vehicles, total amount of $118,798. Chief.
Thank you, members of the council. That is correct. We're requesting approval to purchase 4 police vehicles. 2 vehicles that are going to be purchased are 2022 Toyota Camry hybrids that will be assigned to our detective division. They will be purchased from Tony Davino Toyota at the Utah State contract price for a total of $48,794 or $794 for the both of them. The other 2 vehicles are 2 Ford Explorers that will be assigned to the administration. They will be purchased locally at Performance Ford at a price comparable to the Utah State contract bid price. The vehicles at Performance Ford will be a total of $70,004.06 for the both of them. The price is roughly $50 per vehicle more than what the state contract price is. Performance Ford is not a dealer on the Utah State contract site. That extra money that we'll be spending on that is going to allow us to purchase locally, and then we don't have to do vehicle shuttles to get down to Salt Lake and purchase from the actual dealers who are on the Utah State contract. The vehicles that we are going to be getting rid of or selling are a 2015 Ford Taurus with 61,000 miles and change, a 2014 Toyota Camry with 125,000 miles and change, a 2014 Ford Explorer with 95,000 miles, and a 2012 Toyota Camry with 91,000 miles and change. So we respectfully request your approval to purchase the 4 police vehicles in the amount of $118,798.06.
Do you auction those vehicles?
We do. So we just auctioned last year's vehicles and the year before that. If you happen to remember, because of COVID, we didn't get any vehicles the year before, and we were able to get almost $100,000 out of our cars at auction.
Further comments, questions?
Chief, in the past, Ford Explorers have, with police packages, have had exhaust issues. Have we ever had that in our department?
No, all of our Fords have been very reliable.
Super.
Yes.
I'd be happy to make a motion that we approve the purchase for that amount.
Second.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Chief. Would you go on to the next item, please?
Bet. So the next item is a request to approve the purchase of a replacement water-cooled chiller or a HVAC system. This item was also planned in our current 2022 budget. So for several years, we've been fixing the current cooler chiller that is in the building right now. We're having numerous visits from our own in-house repair people and American Chiller to come and make constant repairs to the system. Over the last few months or over the summer, really, when we've had such high use, we know that there's a leak in the system where we're spending almost $1,000 per month to replace Freon. So it's time to get it replaced, and we have been planning on it. We did try to get numerous bids and only got 2 bids back. The 2 bids came from KK Mechanical, and I believe these items were attached in the paperwork that you got. And the second one was from American Chiller. American Chiller gave two different options, and option one was a single circuit, and then another one was a dual circuit with two different makes. The single circuit is made by Trane, and the cost was $138,000 and change. The dual circuit is made by Trane for $144,000 and change, and then there was a dual circuit that was made by Carrier for $141,000, $141,208. We also asked American Chiller to provide a cost to replace an actuator. American Chiller currently is who we use to service our system, so they're very familiar with what all of the other parts that are associated with the HVAC system. They had recommended that we make some other replacements, so some of those other parts, the actuator, will come to a cost of $2,738. So with that information, we respectfully requested your approval to purchase the Carrier water cooler system from American Chiller for $141,208 and the replacement actuator from American Chiller for $2,738.
Any discussion? We have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Would someone wake up Clint?
Yeah,
Oh,
wake me
Clint's
up.
awake, okay. Consider approval of Resolution 2021-16, appointing Mr. Ryan Luce as the Bountiful City Administrative Law Judge. Clint?
Utah code allows for cities to appoint administrative law judges to hear various matters as outlined in our code and in municipal codes. We are in need of administrative law judge. Our code says they can serve for 2 years. This would be a 2-year appointment, or about 23 months, actually. We typically do it in July. We're a little bit behind here, but it would be for a period of 2 years. I know Mr. Luce. I've worked with him in the past. He's a good attorney. He's intelligent. He's ethical. And he is very well-versed in municipal law, so he would be a great person that knows and understands state and local government very well.
Questions from the council?
Clint, I seem to recall that we had a discussion some time ago about an administrative law judge. Is this the same person, or is this a different
A
applicant?
different person, yep.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the appointment.
Second. And thank you, Clint, for getting this before us.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Clint. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Nay.